Welcome to FAB Open Mic. This is the Crouching Tiger Hidden Benji deck tech. So we got Benji the Piercing Wind. You start at 17, and attack action cards you control with 2 or less can't be defended by cards with hand. So what we want to do is maximize that effect by attacking as many times as possible on a single turn with attack action cards that they can only block with equipment or the card that is in their arsenal. So once per turn effect, when an attack action card you control hits, your next attack this turn gains +1. So let's go through just find out how we're going to do that. We've got some Kodachis. Now you're not going to use these a whole bunch because we just want to be attacking with things that are difficult for them to block. These are easy to block, but sometimes you can strategically place them in a combat chain that is either going to draw a card out of your opponent's hand or just do an extra damage if they, for some reason, don't have any cards in their hand. We've got a Vest of the First Fist. We're running this over the Fayendel Spring Tunic because we just want to win on one turn here. So getting 2 resources on one turn is going to be much more efficient for this particular deck than generating 2 resources over 6 turns. And then we have Mask of Momentum, which is going to draw if we can hit 3 times in a row, which is fairly easy for this deck to do. And we're going to be wearing Snapdragon Scalers, which can give any of our attacks with cost 1 or less go again. And for our arms, I'm going to be running a Tearing Shuko, because there are hands sometimes where you get Crouching Tigers and you want them to deal damage. This is a +2 to a Crouching Tiger, whereas your Breaking Scales only gives something +1, and it's just a little, 1 more damage is a pretty big deal in Flesh and Blood. So that is our starting suite. Obviously you're going to want to be prepared for arcane damage, and if you do need some other blocks, there are, for instance, we got the, if we're playing against Fi or something, we could put the Blazing Yori in there and Breeze Rider boots. But anyway, let's get into the deck. We've got our Tiger Swipes. So Tiger Swipes are most effective when we already have Crouching Tigers, because we need Crouching Tiger to be the last attack on the chain. If it is, this is going to get +2 go again. If it hits, you're going to get X Crouching Tigers, which X is equal to the number of Crouching Tigers you control. So if you get, a couple of these going in a turn, it can get pretty bonkers. The Roar of the Tiger is going to be one of the most important cards in the deck. Create a Crouching Tiger in your hand, and Crouching Tigers you control gain +1 this turn. So it makes all of our 0 attack Crouching Tigers actually attack for damage, which is pretty important. Mind State of Tiger is pretty much in there for resources, and we want this in our starting hand. So this is an aura that says at the start of your turn, destroy it, then create a Crouching Tiger in your hand. So it's a way to start with a 6-card hand on your second turn, if you have that in your opener. Predatory Streak, for 0, you get 2 Crouching Tigers in your Banish Zone. So note the difference between the Banish Zone and putting something in your hand, especially with cards like Art of War. It's a pretty significant difference, but still getting 2 attacks for Benji is pretty good, since you'll see why again in some of the payoff cards later on. Then we're playing 2 of the red Predatory Streak, which is going to give us 3 Crouching Tigers in our Banish Zone for 0. Pretty powerful. And now we're testing out a Flex Claws and a Chi Unleash. So Flex Claw, if it hits, it does cost 1, which is pretty expensive for this deck actually. It's a 4 with go again. And then this, if Crouching Tiger was the last attack, this gets +4. Likely I'm inclined to cut this. I think we have enough finishers in the deck already, and put it in another Flex Claws. Just another way to get additional value out of your hand and force some cards out of your opponent's hand, even though this is greater than 2. So I like having a mix of things that are unblockable with some things that you intend your opponent to block. Then we have Ride the Tailwinds. We've got the yellow and blue pitch. So as you notice, they are both under 3, so they can only block with equipment and from their hand. And it says when it hits the next attack action card with 2 or less base attack, gains go again. And what we're generally looking to give go again is our Crane Dance here, which is a combo with our Fine Center. So if we can ride the Tailwind into a Crane Dance and into a Fine Center, a lot of times we are going to win the game. So I played this exact build at the Armory last week, and I went 2-1 with a narrow loss to Dorinthia. So the Zen State came up big when I was playing against Crouching Tiger, Hidden Katsu, and this was definitely the difference of that game, where it's going to prevent 1 damage every time you take damage for 2 full turns. And you can get that Zen State by hitting with the Fine Center if it was preceded by Crane Dance. Then we have some double strikes, which is just good. 2 attack actions for a cost of 1. And then we have the VPOX. So if this hits, your opponent is going to lose life equal to the number of cards in their hand. So this is also nice, preceded by Ride the Tailwind. So it can give this go again if Ride the Tailwind hits. You do want to play these. It's sort of an awkward card, and I may go down to just 1. Because you often want to play it as a finisher, but you also want to play it early on the combat chain, because that is when your opponent is going to have the most cards in their hand. But it is pretty powerful with the potential to deal 5 damage for 0. And that's why we're running that. Then we have a Snatch and a Soul Bead Strike. Also, again, preceded by Ride the Tailwind. We'll give this go again if it hits successfully, and if Snatch hits, you can draw a card. And that's what we want to do, just chain together a bunch of card draw. Soul Bead Strike might want to be another Snatch, but I just like having, at least 1 of that full combo in there. But yeah, these are both flex spots, so there are a number of cards I think that can go here. The key is you want a couple of blue pitches in the deck to give you some resources. And then we get to our finishers, and we have Enlightened Strike. So ideally we come through and then finish with Enlightened Strike or Salt the Wound. We have E-Strike with the Snapdragon Scalers, of course, where you can give it go again and draw a card to try and keep your turn moving along. Or if you're closing out a combat chain, you can buff it to 7 and force cards out of their hand, or sometimes finish the game if you get enough going. And then Salt the Wound, again, I don't know if you need 2 salt the wounds in here, but I like it. It pitches for 2, so a lot of times you'll be pitching it. But it gets +1 for each attack that has hit this combat chain, which in Benji on some turns can be quite substantial. And then I am running just 1 Faendal's Fighting Spirit. It's nice to block with if you have it in your opening hand, gain a life since we do start at 17. And also out of nowhere off of our Vest of the First Fist. Sometimes it's a nice way to close out a turn just with a surprise 7 damage, gaining 1 life. So I like having a mix of these that are above and below, because it keeps your opponent off balance. And a lot of times if you are attacking with something that does have go again, that is above a power 2, it may draw cards out of your opponent's hand that where they're going to think, oh, this is going to be my only opportunity to block this turn. And then you can sneak in with the card we really want to hit, which is our Spring Tidings, which reads, Spring Tidings hits, draw a card for each other attack action you control with 2 or less base attack. So we can draw as many cards as we have attacks on the combat chain if we hit with Spring Tidings. So the way we hit with Spring Tidings is we've got 2 Razor Reflex, 2 Ancestral Empowerment, 2 Art of War, and a yellow Razor Reflex. In the Art of Wars, it's important to note that are also very good with the Crouching Tiger tokens, where you can banish a Crouching Tiger token from your hand after getting the effect from something like Roar of the Tiger. So that's going to give all of your tigers +1. You can banish the card from your hands, effectively just drawing 2 and giving everything an additional +1 for that entire turn. So you can generate a bunch of Crouching Tigers, you know, sometimes that are all going to be 3 attacks if you can chain some of these Art of Wars and Roar the Tiger effects together. And that's the deck. Here's a sample hand with Benji. We went first in this scenario. We played a couple of items, loaded Spring Tidings into the arsenal, and played a Mind State of Tiger as our last action. So our hand that we have is a Predatory Streak, Roar the Tiger, Ancestral Empowerment, and Razor Reflex. For argument's sake, let's say we are somehow able to keep all of these cards for our first turn, and we are not dead. If that happens, we're going to destroy the Mind State of Tiger and add a Crouching Tiger token to our hand. Next thing that we could do is play a Roar of the Tiger, which is going to create a Crouching Tiger in our hand and give all of our Crouching Tigers +1 this turn. We will follow that up with a Predatory Streak, which is going to put 3 Crouching Tigers into our banish zone. So that'll be right down here. And then we're going to start attacking. So everything with power 2 or less, they cannot block with from their hand as long as it's an attack action card. So Crouching Tiger 1. Let's assume this is going to hit for 1. We'll blow up our vest to give ourselves 2 resources, which we can see right there. Then Benji is going to give our second Crouching Tiger an additional +1. So then we are going to come in with this third Crouching Tiger. If that hits, we are going to draw off of our Mask of Momentum. They may throw an equipment in front of that, which is also okay. So now we've drawn a Tiger Swipe. So then we will go put in, we want to keep at least 1 Crouching Tiger in our hand. It's a nice attack action to pitch if we do end up drawing into an Art of War. So we'll go play this 4th Crouching Tiger for 1 again. And then we will play our Tiger Swipe. I really want the Spring Tidings to hit, so I am not really caring too much about the Tiger Swipe. It's actually going to draw, since this is going to be attacking for 4, it will draw a card or 2 out of their hand or a card in equipment. So once that is blocked, we'll then follow it up with the Spring Tidings. And this is the one we want to hit, so we'll do the Ancestral Empowerment, which is going to draw us, oh look at that, we've got our Art of War. So we have 2 floating here. So before we do Razor Reflex, we just, depending on what they overblocked for, we'll go down to 1 resource, banish this Crouching Tiger from our hand, play an Art of War, and choosing the modes +1 to our attacks this turn, and draw 2 cards with banishing the 1. So now we have 2 cards here, and we still have, now we are attacking for 4 with the Spring Tidings, which could potentially be a 7. Highly unlikely at this point that they're going to be able to stop that. That's going to use our last resource, and then that is going to draw us 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we have 5 additional cards to work with. The first thing that we could do here is we do have Assault the Wound, so there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I want to play this Predatory Streak and this Art of War. So what we're going to do is close this combat chain, and we'll set it off to the side over there, which will go to the graveyard. Play another Predatory Streak. This is going to get us 3 additional Crouching Tigers into our banish zone. We can then pitch something. We're going to probably pitch this Salt the Wound here, and then we will banish this Double Strike and cast another Art of War. So we're going to draw 2 cards. Oh look, we drew another Spring Tidings and a Snatch. So I think at this point we would maybe just bottom the Snatch and attack with the old Enlightened Strike with Go again. Doesn't have, we're going to choose the mode draw a card, and then during the attack reaction phase we'll use our Snapdragon Scalers to give it Go again. Now in this situation we've got 2 Art of Wars in play plus a what is that card called? Roar of the Tiger. So all of these will be coming in for 3, so we can go 3, 3, blow up the Shuko, attack with this one for 5. Make sure they've got everything out of their hand at this point, and then we can come in with the Tiger Swipe, which is going to be actually for 6, and if that does hit, it's going to give us 3 additional Crouching Tigers in our Banish Zone. So then we can come in with these for 3, 6, 9 additional. And then we have Spring Tidings, which is going to be coming in for 4. And we can make that 6, which is then going to draw us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 additional cards. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you see it can get pretty bonkers here. So if we have those 8 cards, you know, you do whatever you want at this point. But those are the kind of turns that Benji can have. Though it is a higher variance deck, if when it goes off pretty crazy. So that's why I like this deck, because your opponent can't block. I don't like it because a lot of times you're facing down a full hand, so if you don't go off, you're in big trouble.